I realised what was wrong with my last video. The door wasn't open, so no cats could come in. So welcome back to another video and the second installment in this series where I look at all the Best Picture winners at the Academy Awards and ask if they are any good. Today I'll be covering the 10 films from the 30s. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I hope not too long. For me, the 30s is my least favourite decade of film. I feel like, especially with Western cinema, it was at a bit of an identity crisis. They just moved from the silent era and didn't really know how to handle sound. And it's ever present in these early Oscar winners that problem is there. For example, title cards would come up and the music would just stop and be silent. But going through these winners, I've discovered some of my new favourite films of the 30s that I think are extremely well made and don't suffer from their conversion from silent to sound cinema. However, it has been exactly hit and miss. 5 of them I liked and thought deserved the Oscar, and 5 of them, well, we'll see about that. So without further ado, before this video gets any longer than it has to be, let's go on to the first Academy Awards. The first Academy Awards were held on the 5th of November 1930, only 7 months after the second Academy Awards. The award show was hosted by Conrad Nagel, and it awarded films from the 1st of August 1929 to the 31st of July 1930. The category of Best Sound was first introduced, and rightfully so, it's still awarded today. Director Lewis Milestone became the first person to win 2 Oscars, and it's the first film to win Best Picture and Best Director, which is pretty much bog standard nowadays. They kind of go hand in hand. And the winner of the 1930 Academy Awards, All Quiet on the Western Front. This is the only film so far that I have actually seen before, and because I have seen it twice and watched it the second time quite recently, I didn't feel the need to rewatch it this time. This film is my favourite of the 1930s and still is, even discovering these 9 new films. It is an anti-war film adapted from the book by Eric Maria Remarque, I think, just from my knowledge. It's honestly one of the most harrowing and effective war films, and takes a very surprising stance by having the protagonist be German and putting you in the perspective of the brainwashed soldier. For a film in 1930 to do this is really, really impressive, and I'd still be surprised if a film came out now in perspective of the Germans in World War I. It's one of those films I just want to talk about scene by scene, but I'm not going to because, again, do not want this video to be too long. I'm just going to focus on one scene, and that is when the protagonist of the film stabs a German soldier and hides with him in a little, what you call it, a crate that has been blown up by a bomb, as soldiers go overhead. At first he stabs him, seeing him as the enemy, but as he lays there helplessly, he feels the need to tend to him and immediately regrets his decision and lies with him as he dies. It's such a human scene that really makes you feel bad and really gets into the mind of how they were indoctrinated to just kill and not think about it, and this was one soldier who did think about it afterwards. Also, the actor who played the Dire Man was actually deaf and only did silent films because obviously he couldn't speak. So it is, in a way, the death of the character and the death of the actor's career, which gives it even more meaning when you hear about it. So yeah, I could talk about this film for hours. If you want to hear my much more extended thoughts, then I'll leave a link in the description for my full review. I actually spoke about this film for my English speaking, that's how much I love it. And I got distinction, so you should read it. So the 4th Academy Awards were held on the 10th of November 1931 by Lawrence Grant. Jackie Cooper was nominated for Best Actor for his role in Skipper at age 7, making him the first child actor to be nominated and the second youngest to this day. This Best Picture, or Outstanding Picture as it was then known, was a record breaker, being the most nominated film of the time with 7 to its name and the first Best Picture to actually win more than 2 awards. But don't let that fool you, because the winner was Cimarron. You know that stereotype that old films are racist? The movie. Fasten Your Seatbelts has plenty of black stereotyping and white privilege, and to be honest, it's just as dull and lifeless as it is racist. And it's very racist.
What is Cimarron?
Oh, that's a very good question. You should ask the old and unnecessarily aggressive woman.
Means wild, unruly. Yancey's idea of a name for the boy.
Oh, that's actually a very interesting explanation.
You don't like anything Yancey does. You never have.
And that loose.
And I'm bored again. In all seriousness, Cimarron is about claiming lands and building society in the late 1880s Oklahoma. It's between the time of the Great Land Rush to the then present, which is now very, very old. My mind was blown upon realising that this 1931 film flashing back to the late 1800s is like us making a film about the 70s. Hell, it's like Baz Luhrmann's new Elvis film. I mean, That is mind-blowing. And to think that the director was 10 years old when the early events of this film were happening, it's just, you don't really associate the 1800s with the 1900s. It feels like such a gap. It begins with all the white cowboys and girls on their horses. Straight away I wish that the website I was streaming on had subtitles because I couldn't understand a word they were saying.
Dixieland.
Oh, indeed.
Going for a town station?
Oh, I'm going for a quarter section ranch.
I actually quite like the opening of the film. Having all of them rush down and claim their land is quite an interesting scene, and I would have liked to see it dragged out longer. Hell, I would have preferred that to be the whole film, like a Stanley Kramer comedy, like It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. It's a mad, yeah, that's right. But no, we have to sit through the rest of the film. Soon after, we are introduced to the two black characters in this film. Both are maids, of course. That's the only role that black people could really get back then. And they're pretty goofy, and not in the clever Charlie Chaplin way that we're laughing with him. Nope, we're laughing straight at him. I already knew this uneducated buffoon stereotype, but I'd never actually seen it in action, and wow. It's so humiliating that back then that was the only role you could get as a black actor. They back it up by saying that he's like this because he's uneducated, but that doesn't have to make him some sort of dimwit. I mean, look at Django Unchained. He's not some sort of buffoon. He's a cool character, even though he doesn't have any education. See, what this film is trying to achieve is a message of inclusion and acceptance. And while I do think it does that quite well for the topic of Native Americans and how it shows them as equal at a time when, and even now, there's a lot of division between Americans and Native Americans. However, this film fails hard at establishing the same care towards the subject of black and white division. Yancey Cravat is the main character, and he tries to treat the young black cleaner as an equal. And although his treatment of this one specific black child is an example to white viewers at the time of how they should treat people who look different to you, it's kind of saying, yeah, we consider them equal as long as they are submissive and harmless like this absolute dimwit. So it's a very mixed message and a very racist one. Yancey Cravat is honestly one of the most hateable characters that I've ever seen in the film. He is a terrible actor with this really annoying wig that kind of undermines his speech when he's doing some sort of court case. In the poster, he's displayed as some sort of rips, you know, heroic man. But throughout the entire film, he's just this kind of upper class stiff. And other than this film's glaring flaw of the prejudice towards black people, it's just bad in general. It's got a terrible sense of humour, it's got no flair to the directing. And I'm going to end this before I rant for too long, because I could honestly not stop talking about this terrible film that's wasted 2 hours of my life. The 5th Academy Awards were held on the 18th of November 1932, hosted by Conrad Nagel again. Walt Disney, who was basically film royalty at the time for creating the evil, theatre-destroying, greedy company called Disney, created a short film for the banquet called Parade of the Nominees, which I have not watched. This Oscars marked the introduction of the film category, which is a great addition to example the talent of filmmakers who can't afford to make feature-length films or can't be bothered. It was the only and first Oscars in which no film won 2 Oscars. And get this, there was a tie for Best Actor, which had never been done before, and I don't think since. One of them was Friedrich March for his performance in Jekyll and Hyde. And I wanted to point this out because this was the first horror film to ever win an Oscar. And that is important, obviously, because anyone who knows the Oscars knows that horror films win shit. Oh, and Walt Disney, one of his first of 4 honorary awards for the creation of Mickey Mouse, who is the face of the evil, theatre-destroying, greedy... And the winner of the 5th Academy Awards was Grand Hotel. I'm going to keep this very short. I had no idea what was going on throughout this entire film. Again, I streamed this where I couldn't get any subtitles and I really needed them because immediately I was confused. It starts with a bunch of people on different phone calls. It was way too much information to take in, and without that in my head I was lost for the entire film. In fact, early on in the film I saw a Doxer with a scar on his face and thought, oh, there's a distinguishable feature, I can remember him, and it turned out he had no relevance in the film, so I was even more lost. Even so, I could appreciate the occasional conversation about love and philosophy that pops up because it did seem really well written and really well acted. But when asked, did this film deserve an Oscar? My reply is the same as when people say, is Tenet worth watching? Probably I didn't really see it. The 6th Academy Awards were hosted by Will Rogers on the 16th of March 1934. And that's the longest gap between award shows given the last one was held in November of 1932. It also had the longest time frame for which films can be nominated, spanning from the 1st of August 1932 to the 31st of December 1933. Walt Disney became the first person to win 2 consecutive awards in the same category, which was Best Short Film, and he would continue to do years and years and years to come. The year before he won for Flowers and Trees, and this year he won for Three Little Pigs, the Nazi. And guess what? There was a La La Land moment, but even more embarrassing. When announcing Best Director, Will Rogers announced by saying, "Come up and get it, Frank," to which legendary director Frank Capra ran onto the podium, accepting the award, saying his speech, and then Will Rogers had the humiliating job of having to go, "I meant Frank Lloyd." How embarrassing. See, Frank Capra thought he won his award for his film Lady in the Day, but truthfully, Frank Lloyd won it for his picture Moonlight. Shit, Cavalcade. And the winner of Best Pictures, and guys, and the winner of, come on, listen.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
and kiddies.
Thanks. The winner for Best Picture was Cavalcade. First thing I want to say is that Cavalcade sounds a lot like avocado. We were all thinking it. The second thing I wanted to say is that this is quite similar to Cimarron. It's a historical film that recaps the eventful first 3 decades of the 20th century, from a New Year's Eve party in 1899 to now. Well, then. I had again a bit of a Cimarron moment where I was like, this was made in early 1900s and late 1800s. It mainly just put us through major events in the early decades even primary school kids would have heard of, through the lens of different people. But I think that alone is where it fails. Despite some characters returning, if it was only focused on one person or a couple or a family, even so, that doesn't mean it wasn't absolutely hilarious. The idea of a New Year's Eve pass in 1899, I think, is a very funny concept that could be made into a, Adam Sandler kind of comedy. But it doesn't stay on that for too long and soon moves on to the Boer War. The Boer War? The Boer War? I don't know. Anyway, it's not that funny for the first half an hour. But then it goes to some random couple that are on their honeymoon and on a boat. And behind them is the sea, and they're talking about their future and their wedding and all this stuff. But when they leave the frame, revealed behind them is something that made me laugh for about a whole minute. Another laughable, or should I say really boring scene is the way they revealed that World War I was happening. Think of the many creative ways that could be shown to express that a major war is starting. Think of the many ways that there has been shown in different films. But this is what they choose to use.
My dears, we're at war with Germany.
There is one montage that goes through all of World War I that I was quite impressed by. It shows all the soldiers marching off into trenches, and then fading in front of them is a kind of a confirmation of all of them dying, whilst title cards reveal which year it is. I really like this, and it seems like quite a nice start to a film set immediately in post-World War I. But it's so out of context in the film that it really doesn't fit in and doesn't make it any better a film, really. I think the film is littered with good ideas, but just pieced together with GCSE drama level writing and such bad acting that it makes for an entertaining but not at all Oscar worthy watch. As for Frank Lloyd, this won't be the last picture of him we'll cover in this video, and you'll be happy to see that he does redeem himself. The 7th Academy Awards were held on the 20th of February 1924 by Irvin S. Cobb. New categories included Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, and Best Original Song. Clark Gable became the first Best Actor winner who was born in the 20th century, which is mad. And as an apology for the previous year's blunder, Frank Capra actually won Best Director. I'm sure when they announced his name, he was a bit like, should I go up? Should I? Did they mean me? Walt Disney won Best Short Film again for The Tortoise and the Hare, the Nazi. However, the film that would sweep the show, winning Best Actor, Actress, Screenplay, Director, and Picture, was It Happened One Night. I expected to and really did love this film. I'm a big fan of Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life, so I was interested to see what else he's experimented in. And, well, I mean, it's not really experimenting, it's also a romance, but it is very different to It's a Wonderful Life. It's quite a generic romance story. Clark Gable plays a money-hungry man who thinks he knows best, and the female love interest is a spoiled daughter of a very rich father. It's the kind of romance that you do see a lot in old films, with this weird authority kind of underlying message where the man always knows what's best and is always much smarter than the woman.
The best chess players in the world are men.
It is really lovely. It's got lots of funny scenes. The romance is believable. I like how you initially think that Clark Gable is a cocky idiot who thinks he can get the woman for no matter what he does, but really he's actually just using her for money because he wants to use her in his newspaper. I'm not gonna spoil too much about it. I think you should check it out if you're thinking about it. And yeah, it deserved an Oscar. Also, this is the first of 3 Clark Gable films that will be in this video. I've got to say, I don't like him as an actor. He always plays the same cocky character, and really not a likeable one either, even though the 3 films he's in are pretty great.
Kiddies.